Okay, I was asked to say some words on the earthquake in Japan, and I've been told that there were like 100 earthquakes in that little period since that earthquake and today. So it's not really only Japan, and whether it's man-made or not, it's all man-made, and we have to not we have to stop like juxtaposing this whether it's harp or based on weapons or nuclear plants. And well, what is it, what we need to discuss now, and which is more urgent than ever, is that we have to a large degree been programmed into a form of thinking that is basically a form of dividing. When you go to school, you learn to make divisions, and in church, what you learn is basically how to divide good from bad or evil, and feminine from masculine. And science does the same thing, and in terms of dividing time up in pieces, or the observer from the observed, which is basically a method of dividing. And we divide. We look at the lobster and take it out of the sea and dissect it and basically divide it, destroy it. And we have been. This is what happens at school also. When children are taught arithmetic. And this is also what happens in terms of nations, where we divide nations and different parties, and in doing that we basically divide the nation. And now the whole world has been divided, and now we're even trying to divide the world from beyond with alien invasions and what have you. What the point is that we have been educated to divide thinking. Our current form of thinking is division, and division is destruction. We learn to look at nature as separate from ourselves, and anything that is seen as separate from ourselves becomes, as it were, repressed, and we destroy that. This current form of thinking also divides the mind and the body, and this is why what we see is more and more the body behaving exactly opposite to the mind, because it's through this way of thinking that we all are being programmed in, that we all now have adopted. We have disconnected the mind and the body is in total this imbalance towards the mind. And the same thing has happened in terms of man and nature. We have juxtaposed nature as being separate from us, and we move on, and then the scene is prepared to destroy. And whether it be through harp, through the way we have destroyed, and basically in like delinquents, we have robbed the earth of her precious materials. It all boils down to the metaphor of that we have a house, and this house is complete with windows and a door and everything, and then there's someone that thinks that that they have to remove the windows and the doors and basically destroy the house, not knowing, believing that it's in some way they are fixing that house, improving it, which is like the earth, and this is what we are doing. And we are now even exporting this way of thinking of division, this theory of division, which has been adopted around the whole world as the method, the way to proceed. Even to the moon, we have now started to destroy the moon, and this is we have become like, the human being has become like a dangerous virus, if you wish. And it's in these terms that the earth, nature, is part of, as being part of us, is going to compensate us, is going to, if you wish, protect, compensate and protect life against this approach. And it's in these terms that we have to start to listen to the silent but devastating words of nature, which will only become worse. And we need to look at the new approach. People look at the modern science, which is basically a mechanical model based on division, looks at the dying fishes and says it's a lack of oxygen. But we really must go back to the indigenous way of interpreting things, and these are signs and messages, because the earth is the unconscious, and very much as Carl Gustav Jung said, that the body is basically the unconscious. And when an individual goes offbeat, that the body will compensate with words, messages, which nowadays are taken as diseases, and we try to eradicate them. But the same way the body can produce a heart attack, the collective body, the earth, can produce an earthquake. And what we have found is that until the individual starts to listen to the unconscious, that the body will continue to correct the person that is not living in wholeness. So it's in this way that our way of life now, driven by this way of thinking, which is what I would call it, based on a theory of division, which we believe is the best way to control and manipulate things. That the body, the collective body, the earth, is going to correct us, and this is notwithstanding whether there are other technologies which so-called can affect weather and these things. The danger of that, while we should keep open for the possibility that this technology does exist, the danger of attributing all of this to this technology or this program, is that we will not take responsibility for what is happening. And the stage that we have to complete now is a stage of becoming self-aware and self-responsible for everything that is happening. And we have footage, we have data on what happens to groups, what happens to the shadow at the level of groups and collectives. And we know that the shadow at the level of a group or collective can, in a physical way, impact us. In terms, for instance, I've seen of organizations and even nations. We have dreams that now have linked, for instance, floodings to nations being extremely lopsided. So if we do not, we must start to work on the shadow at all levels, because this is the shadow is what is going to the collective unconscious in the form of the shadow, being the side of us that we are in extreme denial of, is going to compensate us. And what we found is that towards the extremes of this dissociation in the mind, at the individual level, at the extreme there is death, and the shadow can do that. Actually, to save the self, the spirit, the soul. So, as a collective, we have become extremely repressive of our shadow, and total denial of what we are doing. And the image that has emerged is as if we have almost become like delinquents, cosmic criminals, in the way we are destroying everything. And there must be a change in terms of this becoming aware as a species, as a planet, of our shadow and of how we are polluting and destroying, and hypocrisy and corruption has become the way of life in this system of thinking, which in Greek mythology is symbolized as the one-eyed, the race of the one-eyed. And we have become that race of one-eyed, which some have even associated to the reptilian brain. And we were supposed to evolve into spiritual beings. So no matter what, we must understand that there's a higher law here, which in the East has been referred to also as karma, which is in the West basically the shadow. So it's in a bit of an updated way that we read this law, but this is the shadow. This is what is now going to affect us and is affecting us. And our messages are from the dreams, and the collective unconscious itself is that there will be a combination of nature forces that are going to act in concert to protect the earth, and of course beyond the earth, the universe, from this level of awareness that we are at, which is extremely destructive. And there was of course a purpose to divide, to enter this stage of extreme dualism, but this was in order to become self-conscious, and it was planned to reach this stage as it is. But now we have to we the people have to start to awaken and become self-conscious, and become aware that there is no division, there is no, that everything is basically one. But we can only enter that awareness when we do individual work on our shadow and on the unconscious, and become self-conscious. So before any of that, before becoming entering the higher levels of consciousness, we have to do this work. And this is and if a critical amount of people in every nation starts to work on this, on their unconsciousness in this term, there will be a shift of what is now consolated in the shadow, which is this storm. The dreams say that there's this storm constellated in the shadow, and this storm is going to keep getting bigger. But we can change this if a critical amount of us were to become conscious and work on the shadow. Thank you.